This is Rafael Alejandro with my review of the Mega Man Anniversary Collection by Capcom. For those of you who don't keep up with the gaming news, Capcom recently released a brand new 8-bit game in the same style as their old Nintendo games, Mega Man 9, downloadable on all three of the current generation consoles. Now of course, this game is not downloadable on the PlayStation 2, but what we PS2 gamers do have is this, the Mega Man Anniversary Collection. This was also released on the GameCube and Xbox, and it is a compilation of the games Mega Man 1 through 8. I'll admit that I actually missed out on the Mega Man games the first time around, back when I had a Nintendo. My second console was a Sony PlayStation, so by that point Mega Man's glory days were over. It was Spyro the Dragon, Crash Bandicoot, and Solid Snake who had my attention. But years later, I found this compilation disc, and my chance to finally play through some of Mega Man's greatest games. There isn't too much of a story to these games. Once upon a time, there were two doctors named Dr. Wily and Dr. Light. Dr. Light created many robots, and Dr. Wily was jealous, so he reprogrammed most of Dr. Light's robots to do his evil bidding and take over the world.
Of course!
Dr. Light's two remaining robots were named Rock and Roll. So Dr. Light then reprogrammed Rock to fight Dr. Wily's robots, thus becoming Rockman, a name Nintendo didn't want to use in the North American release. Instead, Rock became Mega Man, a name just as creative as Superman or Ultraman. Every game introduces 8 robots. In the first game, there are 6 enemy robot masters, as Mega Man and Ro apparently count as the other 2 of the original 8 robots. In the subsequent games, Mega Man encounters 8 new robot masters to battle. Most of the games on this disc follow the same basic setup. You are given the stage select screen where the robot masters are displayed around the square in the middle. You can visit these stages in any order you like. At the end of each stage, you face the corresponding robot master in a one-on-one duel to the death. When you defeat a robot master, you obtain their weapon, and this is where the game really gets interesting. You of course have an unlimited supply of your standard weapon, but every time you obtain another weapon, it comes with its own gauge, limiting how much you can use it. You can find items to refill these gauges, and you also return with a full supply after using a continue, which are limitless. Certain robot masters are weaker against certain master weapons, so playing through the stages can be easier depending on the order you play them in. Just like Pokemon, you can think of Mega Man as an elaborate and convoluted game of rock, paper, scissors. Except you're a robot. Unlike some RPGs where you don't get the best weapons and items until you defeat the most difficult boss, leaving nobody to use said weapons against, these games really get going once you've defeated every robot master and have obtained all their weapons. When you complete all the initial stages, the center option becomes selectable. This takes you to the more difficult stages, through various creative boss battles, leading up to the final climactic confrontation against Dr. Wily himself. This formula would be tweaked in each installment, but remain essentially the same. Unlike The Legend of Spyro, you get no cinematic opening, no tutorials, no Elijah Wood. You get a title screen and a stage select screen. It's not like the controls are that difficult to figure out. You jump with the X button, mapped from the A button on the NES, and you shoot with the square button, mapped from the B button. A little add-on is that you can use the triangle as a rapid fire, simulating rapidly pressing the A button. And of course, you can move with the D-pad or the left analog stick, but this style of game really feels more natural with the D-pad. That's it. You run, jump, and shoot. You jump onto platforms, you jump over gaps, and you shoot enemies. With only your Mega Buster, you have to jump to shoot any higher, and you can't duck or shoot below you, only straight to the left or right. And the enemies know this. They will come at you just slightly above or below your line of fire and ram into you. And they will smile at you, and they will do it again. The game is difficult in its simplicity. This syndrome is known as a game being Nintendo hard. And how appropriately so, since it is an NES game I'm playing on my Sony PlayStation 2. Maybe next time I show you guys how to play Sega Genesis games on your PlayStation 2. There are several types of items to collect. The small and large yellow orbs restore Mega Man's life gauge. The small and large blue pellets don't do anything if you obtain them while equipped with your standard weapon, but they, like Mega Man himself, will change color when you have a master weapon equipped, and when obtained, refill that weapon's gauge. The small red balls simply count toward your score at the end of the stage. The point system was removed altogether after the first game, so you won't find them anymore in Mega Man 2, where you now face off against 8 brand new Master Robots. The only weapon in Mega Man 1 besides your standard Mega Buster and the 6 Master Weapons is the Laser Arm, which allows you to create platforms. This idea was further developed in Mega Man 2, where you obtain 3 extra weapons known as Items 1, 2, and 3. These become necessary in the stages of Dr. Wily's castle. You can now also collect E-Tanks, which you can store and use to replenish your health gauge at any time. I admit that Mega Man 2 was lots of fun between obtaining the 8 Master Weapons and facing off against the giant bosses this game would later be remembered for. Between the gameplay and incredible music, it's easy to see why many consider this the best Mega Man game. It's also easy to see why many consider Mega Man 3 the best of the bunch. This game finally gave you some new advantages. The items of the previous game are swapped for different forms of your new robot dog Rush. He can now be used as a springboard, submarine, or jet, each treated as a different weapon with its own gauge that can be refilled the same way as the master weapons. My favorite addition to Mega Man 3 is the ability to slide, which gives you a new way to dodge and move faster. Besides these gameplay changes, this game also introduces a new character, Proto Man. Before Wario, Shadow the Hedgehog, or Seto Kaiba, Proto Man was the lovable anti-hero, and he comes with his own theme music. In Mega Man 4, you can now hold the square button to charge up your Mega Buster before firing it, giving you a second way to use your standard weapon. It really is a lot of fun playing through each of the games on this compilation and seeing the changes in each one. The first 6 are in the classic Nintendo style, Mega Man 7 in the Super Nintendo style, and Mega Man 8 PlayStation style. You get weapons that you can shoot in any direction, shields that you can throw, you wear Rush as a jetpack, you get a soccer ball that you can kick at your enemies, a charge slide, blocks to throw, a shuriken, you can make it rain, and you can even have Mega Man stop time, a power he obtained years before Spyro did. Let's get back to talking about the compilation as a whole. Since the games are so hard, you are given 3 options from the main menu that makes the games easier. You can switch the difficulty level from normal to easy, and you can begin with 5 lives instead of just 3. The option that makes the biggest difference is turning on Navi mode. Each game has a character that acts as your Navi. With this on, you can get hints throughout the games in the pause menu. It's like having game facts built in. After playing through the games without the assists on, I turned them off and played through again. By this point, however, I had played enough that I didn't really notice much of a difference. So, while the games are pretty tough to begin with, the difficulty curve seems to flatten out quite a bit. I feel most people should at the very least try out a couple of the 8-bit games. Even if you're not very interested in Mega Man or retro gaming, this game is a decent rental. Keep in mind that the individual games are not very long, especially since there is very little as far as cutscenes. If you rent it for a week, you can probably play through the first 2 or 3 games. Younger gamers will have a much harder time with these games. If you want to rent it just for the experience, go ahead and turn on all the assist options. Even if you don't beat any of the individual games, playing through some of the stages in each game is still a lot of fun. If you are interested in Mega Man or retro gaming, and you don't already own most of these games, then you should definitely buy it. For the price of one PS2 game, you get 6 NES games, an SNES game, and a PS1 game. But that's not all! Notice that the front of the box says it contains 10 games. Once unlocked, you can play the Mega Man Fighters, 2 arcade fighting games previously unreleased in North America. There's not a whole lot to these games. You mostly battle through enemies from the main games, but for once you do get the option to play as other characters, including Proto Man. Some of the bosses are hard, but you can continue during the fight, so anyone can eventually beat these games. With all of this on one disc, the game is more than worth the cost. If you would like to learn more about Mega Man, please consult your local library. Or better yet, you can watch the Gaming Historian's video on the history of Mega Man at retroware.tv. You can also see Stuttering Craig's video game vaults of Mega Man 1 through 6 at Screw Attack's section of GameTrailers.com. Thank you for listening, and happy gaming.